So, the heart of this program and Montessori itself to help the children fall in love with learning. We want them to become curious, independent, self directed, and able to look at the world and learn things on their own terms.
We're creating young people who love learning and who love solving their own problems. A foundational Montessori idea is that we must develop a system to follow the child. And because we invert the foundational premise, all of the things we do are done in a manner to follow the child. Starting with respecting the child, respecting their developmental needs, and respecting their diversity. In a lot of conventional education, the belief is that children don't want to learn and must be made to learn. They have to be coerced in different ways, they have to be persuaded, they have to be bullied, they have to be harassed, they have to be threatened. Whereas we start with the opposite premise. We start with the belief that if you look at babies, young children, they learn without, almost magically, without having been put to school. They learn their first language, they learn what to do as members of the household. And hence we take that idea into schooling and say that children want to learn things. And when we truly, deeply believe that, the entire education system looks different. And that's what we try to do as Montessori teachers. We believe that each child wants to learn. Our job is to get out of the way and is to create an environment where they can go ahead and do their learning. So that to me is really a critical difference. Hence we are not here to teach, we are here to guide when we can.
I always wanted to put my son in a Montessori school because the environment is what governs their education, and that's something I was really in love with.
When you see a young child, you always see them that they want to touch things, feel, see things. There's a lot of curiosity. So they naturally gravitate towards a hands-on learning experience.
Parents often wonder why they walk into a classroom and they see a child sweeping the floor. They don't fully realize at that moment that the child is developing their brain by using their hand. And I think that is something that is missing in the variety of educational philosophies that we know, which prioritize learning through pen and paper. That very early on, a paper is put into the hands of the child and they're expected to write. The thing that it misses is that it doesn't really build the fine motor capacity that is needed of these children. And hence, in the Montessori world, we will have a lot of materials, we will have a lot of practical life activities, we will have a lot of art, and when the child is ready, we will have a lot of music. Because all of these different methods allow the child to use their senses and primarily their hands as a way to build their brain. So the hand is the primary instrument of the brain, and we really respect that dictum.
A key feature of this program is the multi-age classroom, where children are there from the age of 2.5 to 6 years of age. And they all work together. We see a lot of collaboration happening, a lot of learning that happens from each other. From the time the child comes to an environment, we'll see an older child coming and helping them. If they are of the same age, we sometimes also assign a buddy so we can take them around and show them around. And we also see a lot of the younger children looking up to the older ones on, what work they're doing. We see a lot of curiosity.
That by having this distribution of ages, we allow children to play different roles in their journey. Occasionally, they are newbies, they are learning the norms, they are getting help. When they grow up, they are the seniors, they are offering this help, they are guiding, they are coaching, they are mentoring, they are leading. So the idea in a primary program is that a group of children between the ages of 3 to 6 learn to be part of a civil society together, and they learn to function courteously and graceful.
They love that they can be themselves, and they can learn, or they can understand things at their own pace. Each child learns at a different pace, and they're not rushed to say that you must be reading by this age, you must be writing by this age. So the ability for them to just be themselves is what brings them back to school.
The day starts with the children coming in at their own pace. Some of them are coming with their friends. They are talking to each other. Some of them are just walking by themselves. They come into the classroom. They put their bags in the cubby hole. They'll put their water bottles. Some children will go straight to the mat box and, they'll take a mat and they'll start with their work. Some of them want to share and they can't wait to share either with us or with their friends. We also have an art corner, we have a reading corner. So children have the freedom to decide what they want to do. At some point during the day, you'd see that the whole class has settled down, or majority of the children have settled down, and there's a lot of focus and concentration in their work. There's also music, there's art happening, there are field trips that happen on certain days. You would see certain fruit activities as well. Then there's sports, there's outdoor play. The classroom is broadly divided into 5 sections. You have the exercise of practical life, you have sensorial, language, math, and culture. Now, exercise of practical life is things that happen around you, things that the child would have seen in their home environment as well. The other one is the sensorial. Now, the children at this age perceive everything sensorially. They see the world with their senses. So the objective of these materials is to awaken these senses. It helps them maybe understand weight, understand shapes, understand the length, the height. The third area is language. In language, we start with the phonetic analysis to help the children understand that words are made out of sounds. We don't really teach them the alphabet names, but we kind of associate. Now, when you say mat, you say it as actor. So we kind of help them how to identify these sounds, the first sound and the last sound, and then they come to the middle sounds. The fourth area is math, and in math, again, it's a lot of concrete materials. Now, if I would say 45, what does 45 mean for a child? So they understand it by counting beads, that there are 4 tenths, there are 5 units. This concept helps them also in going and doing mental math. The fifth area is culture, and this is basically the things that are there around us. It could cover history, geography, it would cover your maps, maybe some scientific experiments like zinc, float, how magnets work. There could be materials related to plants, animals, maybe the seasons.
But one of the observations my daughter was basically putting a puzzle together, which was states of India. And I saw her finish the bigger states much faster until it was time when she moved to the 7 states in the Northeast. And I saw her struggle a little bit with it. As a parent, you just want to go and help them out with something. But the environment in the school is very restrained and they only intervene when needed. So when I saw her put that together, it took her a lot of time, it took her a lot of attempts, but there was no frustration on her face. I saw confusion, she was flustered, but eventually it took her time, and by the end of it, when she put it together, she was very proud of herself. And for me, it was just standing back and watching. It was hard to do, but it also makes you reflect on how kids learn, right? In that one example, I saw her build problem solving ability, patience, confidence, skills that are very hard to otherwise learn in an environment where you're just told what to do and you're doing it.
Children at this age want to talk to their friends. They are still negotiating how social dynamics work. They also want to see how others are interacting. So we have something called as grace and courtesy. These are presentations or, these are activities that are shown to the children. There could be something as, I want to talk to my friend. My friend is working. What do I do? How do I approach? How can I go and disturb? Because we also don't want the other child's focus and concentration to be disturbed by this whole interaction. So there is a way in which they can go about doing it. We talk to them that, we can wait for some time. We approach them when they have done with the work. So the classroom is like a community where we take care of each other. We take care of the classroom as well. We have something called as a responsibility chart. At the end of the day, all of us are assigned to some things that we do for the class. We prepare it for the next day. Suppose you might have conflict with your friend. How do you resolve it? Can you, use certain language? Is there a particular way in which you can resolve it? Of course, if there is physically somebody is hurt, then we do intervene at the same time. But we also let them try to resolve them, fix by themselves. We follow the 3 R's, that is respect to self, respect to others, and respect to the environment. So when any of these 3 R's are violated, we definitely intervene. For example, the child has a freedom to choose the material. But can he throw it? Can he, start playing with it in a manner that is not accepted? That's not possible. So we, at that point, do talk about it. We have different ways in which we will help the child understand what is acceptable and what is not.
One of the things that stuck with me was if a child is asking for something, that means it's not accessible, even if it's water. So we actually started making things accessible at home for him. So I thought that was very interesting, where you include the child as one of the members in the family and not just, a child, or do child talk versus, actually bringing them into a conversation and having a non-adult but yet non-child conversation.
So one of the questions that we often get is, are these children who are graduating this program, are they ready for grade 1? And that could be grade 1 within our elementary program, it could be grade 1 in a conventional school somewhere. But this question, I think, is an important question, and it's there in every parent's mind. I think the way I'd like to frame this is to look at what skills do I think these children acquire by the time they graduate. Broadly, from our perspective, we truly believe that these children love learning, that they are self-directed about their learning, they enjoy going and discovering new things, and they enjoy the act of laboring to find what they need. And we think that's a really, really valuable skill in the long term. As part of this, given the kind of conceptual work they do in the classroom, we do feel that these students have a deep level of understanding in the various topics they encounter. Some students will encounter a broad range of topics, some students will encounter a narrower range of topics, but whatever the range may be, we do believe that these students have a deep conceptual base which will serve them well in the future. So academically speaking, our view is, and this view has been borne out by students who are now with us at much higher grades, these students will enjoy their learning. They'll be more than equipped for grade 1 levels.
The 3 years or 3.5 years in the primary environment help the children develop in their personal, social, and emotional skills in addition to your academic learning. When I talk about personal skills, it's your motivation, independence, how responsible you are. We track these on a quarterly basis, and we see a progression that happens through the 3 years that they are here.
Few things that I saw was wanting to be independent. Like I will put the buttons on the shirt by myself. I want to eat by myself. I am hungry. Things like what we used to, force feed or things like that stopped. And this took over. And I'm very happy that independent self took over. So this is one of the biggest feats that I think I'm very thankful for.
The school and the parents are following this approach of leading, letting the child lead. And we are sort of doing gentle parenting. It's also important for us to have some kind of boundaries, have some kind of checkpoints where the kid also understands that there is some kind of accountability for their behavior. So I think for her, she knows that she gets only one pick at something. Like if you go to the supermarket, she knows that she can get one thing. So she will be a little more deliberate about it. She'll think about it. She'll go around and she'll make a choice that she knows that she cannot go back on. So I think this kind of accountability which I wanted to have in my child is something that the school's environment also supports.